Today we're going to talk about the Proverbs 31 woman because she is someone that we ought to look at. She is given as a role model for godly womanhood in the Bible. And so I think it's so opposite to a lot of what we're taught as women, especially at least women my age. Maybe they're taught a little different now, although I've talked to some young girls and I don't think they are. But this woman is a busy girl. But I think that's what we don't like about her. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't do all that. She's like up in the morning and she's up at late night and she's working. And we sort of have a culture of productivity that if you're really, really busy, then you have a meaningful life. And that's not really true. But I'm going to read this, and I've never read this particular passage out of this particular Bible before. So we're both going to read it together. This is a Messianic Bible. It's the Messianic Jewish family Bible that I have. So it's written by Jews. It's translated by Jews, Jewish scholars who are also Christians, but they translate the Hebrew in slightly different ways. And so I've read much of the Old Testament, some of the New Testament in this Bible, but I haven't read the Proverbs yet in this translation. So I thought this would be interesting for us to read it together. And what I want you to note in your comments is not what she's doing. I don't want you to make note of what she's doing, because what she's doing is unique to her culture. I want you to make note of who she is. What kind of woman is this? And if this is a model for mature, godly womanhood, this is something that we should aspire to, all right? And so not all she's doing, but who is she? So let me read about her. And as you hear a word that describes who she is, not what she's doing, but who she is, put it in the chat. Okay. It's titled A Woman of Valor in Proverbs 31, starting in verse 10. An accomplished woman who can find. Her value is far beyond rubies. Her husband's heart trusts in her, and he lacks nothing valuable. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax with her hands and works willingly. She's like a merchant ship, bringing her sustenance from afar. She rises while it's still night and provides food for all of her household and portions for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. From the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and invigorates her arms. She's working out. She discerns that her business is good. Her lamp never goes out at night. She extends her hand to the spindle, and her palm grasps the spinning wheel. She spreads out her palms to the poor. Hold on, my husband's grinding my coffee. Excuse me, just 1 minute. He's gone a long time. All right. Her lamp never goes out at night. She extends her hand to the spindle, and her palm grasps the spinning wheel. She spreads out her palms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. She's not afraid for snow for her house, for her whole household is clothed in scarlet wool. She makes her own luxurious coverings. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gates, and when he sits among the elders of the land, she makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies sashes to the merchants. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the days to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and lessons of kindness are on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and bless her. Her husband also praises her. Many daughters have excelled, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears Adonai will be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands. Let her deeds be her praise at the gates. So who is this woman? What are some of her character qualities? Okay, so let me just see what I see in the chat, if I can see anything. Good morning, everyone. I'm seeing if you see any character qualities of her. Love this topic. Yeah, I do too. All right, so let's see what are some of her qualities. What are trustworthy, diligent. Yes, diligent, wise, thoughtful, strong, thoughtful, valued. She rises up, she girds herself. Hardworking, discerning, financially thrifty, strong, hardworking, discerning. Okay, stewardship. Thanks to Howard. Yep, thank you, Howard. She's not afraid. She extends her palm, resourceful, fearless, giving, dignified, helps the needy, honorable, kind, self-sufficient, prepared. I love that. Overworked. Well, she's doing the work, so she might be overworking. Strength and dignity, kind, resourceful, a woman after God's heart. And Debbie says valued, trustworthy, accomplished, industrious, thoughtful, generous, strong, discerning, courageous, stylish, thrifty, wise, kind, watchful, loves the Lord, God-fearing. Unreachable goals, someone says. She's a blessing to people. She's accomplished. All right, admired, independent, loyal, leader, responsible. This is amazing. Do you think that we're taught as Christian women to be those things today? Or do you think we're taught more to be dependent and submissive and helpless in terms of doing all these things? She was decisive. She decided whether she was going to buy a field. She had money to buy a field. She didn't talk to her husband about it. She decided. It says, she discerns that her business is good. She considers a field and buys it. She has stuff to sell to the merchants. This is a resourceful woman. Energetic, prepared. And this does not threaten her husband at all. You know, one of the things I did last year was I stood up to John MacArthur and contradicted him when he said empowered women make men weak. This is one empowered woman. She's an empowered woman. She's got what I call a big circle of great character qualities. Now, we may not choose to do all the tasks that she did. Those were her choices, and she had them to make. But she wasn't a helpless, dependent, childlike woman who had no voice, who had no choice, who didn't work. She worked. She had her own money. She discerned her business was good. She had a thriving business. She used her money. She stewarded herself both physically and financially, we see in here at least. And she was generous to others. So what is it that keeps you feeling stalled in the person that you're supposed to be? This is the woman that God is saying, hey, I want some of these character qualities for you too. My question to you this morning is, what are the character qualities you want for yourself? What kind of woman do you want to be? Not what you want to do, because what you want to do comes out of who you want to be. So what kind of woman do you want to be, and what's in your way? Who squashes that? So there's a poem that I don't have it with me, but it's something like, the oak tree lies in the acorn, and the butterfly in the cocoon, and the bird in the egg. All right? So in our immature state of the acorn, the cocoon, the egg, we're not fully developed yet. But as we go through our lifespan, God calls us to mature. He says, put off your childish ways and put on mature ways. Grow into your full capacity as a person, as a woman. What stops you from doing that? Especially for my audience, it's often another person. It's a person who feels threatened by your strength. It's a person who doesn't want you to thrive, because if you thrive, you might leave him, and that would leave him helpless and dependent on you. He doesn't want you to be strong, because that threatens his ego or his self-image. And so therefore you stay stuck in your immature place. Or maybe you stay stuck in your immature place because of lies that you've been taught by your church, by your parents, that a good woman, all she wants in life is to be a wife and a mom. Those are two wonderful roles, but that's not who you are. That's what you do for a season. You're a wife and you're a mom, and I hope you're a good one. But there can be bad wives and bad moms too, depending on who you are. So what kind of character qualities do you want to embody, and what's getting in your way? That's what I want to talk about today. I want to help you get out of your own way, because sometimes we have limiting beliefs, like I can't. I'm not smart enough. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't go back to college. I couldn't start my own business. Why not? Maybe there's some obstacles out there, like a husband who doesn't want you to do that, or small children, or other things. But maybe the obstacles are in here, and you're telling yourself, I can't. I love that this woman is not a fearful woman. Now, everything changes in life, and we've never more experienced it than this year. everything is still in a state of flux and changing, and we don't even know who's going to be our next president. It's up for grabs. Everything is changing. Our whole culture may change from a democracy and a capitalistic society to a socialistic society in the next year. We don't know. Nothing stays the same. But do you live afraid of that? Or can you smile at the future unafraid because you know who you are? You know you're capable. You know you're confident. You know you're resourceful. And confidence has nothing to do with bravado. Confidence is, I know I can handle the changes that are coming in my life. I'm not afraid of them. I can handle them. I've handled them in the past. I will handle them in the future. I maybe don't even know how I'll handle them, but I'm confident I will be able to, with God's help, figure it out. That's a strong woman. But I don't see a lot of those women these days. And so I want to ask you, what's in your way? Is it an obstacle out here? Could be. Is it an obstacle in here? That's more likely. Many of you know, I've shared the story that I had an obstacle inside my head. It was not an obstacle exterior. So when I was in graduate school for my master's degree, when I was 21 years old or 22 years old, I told myself that I couldn't go for my PhD. Why not? Because I'm not smart enough. Because I don't know how to write. I'll never be able to write a dissertation. I can't do it. There's no way. No one's ever encouraged me in my writing skills, and I don't think I can write a whole PhD. I'm not smart enough to finish a PhD, and I don't want to embarrass myself. That's what I told myself. Now, I laugh at that because I have written 7 books, but I didn't write them until God called me to write them. But I had the abilities to write. I just didn't know I had the abilities to write, right? And so sometimes we get in our own way of our growth and our development because of lies. And we don't even know they're lies. We think they're truth. It's true. I can't write, I said. That's not true. And even if I didn't know how to write very well, I have learned to write after 7 books. I write a whole lot better now than I did when I wrote the first book, right? And so we can learn these things. And so one of the things I love about this passage is this woman didn't stay stuck. She didn't stay living afraid. She lived full out and used all of her gifts. What stops you? What stops you from living full out, using all of your gifts? And for you, if it's sometimes obstacles on the outside or obstacles on the inside like mine was with writing, I would encourage you to attend our webinar on next Tuesday. I'm going to do 2 live webinars talking about 4 lies that are in here that we believe that keep us stuck and afraid in our destructive marriage. And maybe you're out of a destructive relationship, but you're still living stuck and afraid, and you might still have some of those lies inside of you that you don't even know are lies. But they structure the end of your story. And so I want to teach you how to get unstuck. And so if you want to join that webinar, just go to my website, leslievernick.com, and then /join webinar. You see, one of the things about the Proverbs 31 woman that helps her to smile at the future unafraid is she lives her life as an owner. And what I mean by owner versus a victim, she lives her life as a steward. Like, this is my life. I only have one life to live. So if I were writing a story and I were writing a book, okay, so if I'm going to write a book about my life, all right, let's say we're writing a novel, or it's a true novel, a true book about my life, all right? But it's a storybook. It's not just a nonfiction book. So I'm writing a story about my life, and I'm on chapter 10, and so now COVID-19 has hit. Now elections, and our country's in a ton of peril and other personal issues in the outside of my life, okay? I can't control those. God oftentimes sets the scene. Wherever you're in your story, he sets the scene. But you write how the character writes out her story. I've shared this before on Facebook Live, and I'll do it. Here's the scene. And this is it impacts the end of the story. So she was an owner of the end of her story. That's why she wasn't afraid. Whatever obstacle came her way, she worked through it. So here I was in San Diego last January, before all this hit, And I was at a mastermind doing some business work with other colleagues that some of them I met, some of them I didn't met, but we rented a big house in La Jolla, a B&B that we could just share. It's cheaper that way than renting a hotel. And I was the first to arrive. Had to go to the bathroom, couldn't get in the door, couldn't get in the gate. Couldn't get in the gate. So here's the setting of my story. What was my obstacle? The gate won't open. The code doesn't work. The gate's locked. I can't get into the house. So I'm calling everybody, trying to figure out what to do. And this is my story. I'm sitting on a stoop, waiting to go to the bathroom, thinking I'm going to pee my pants. That's my story. That's how the character's playing, my character's playing the story. So someone else, one of my colleagues, one I had met, a young woman about 30, Emily, she gets out of her Uber, she goes to the gate, and she goes, oh, she pushes it. It was never locked. You see, because I thought it was locked, because it was closed and it had a big gold lock and key on there, I thought it was locked. And because I thought it was locked, I never even pushed to see if it was open. That affected the story. It affected the way the story might have ended. I might have sat on that stoop and peed my pants because I never even tried to push open that gate. How many of you have lies that you believe? Like mine, I can't get a PhD. I don't know how to write. So I never even tried to move forward because I was so sure that the lie I believed was the truth. I never even questioned it. This is important, ladies, because this woman has developed herself. You might look differently on the outside as you develop yourself. Not everybody's going to do what she did. But what are you made to do? So an oak tree is not a rose bush or an apple tree. We're not all the same. But if you want to be who God called you to be and be able to live your life full out and smile at the future unafraid, then you have got to identify what are your obstacles and what holds you back and begin to move through them. And don't let any one person, including a spouse, step on the person that you were meant to be. Have you ever blacktopped your driveway and it starts to get cracks on it because it's getting old or worn out? Or maybe it didn't have a crack in it, but all of a sudden it gets a crack in it because this little seed decided, I'm not letting this blacktop keep me from being what I was supposed to be, right? Whether it's a weed or whether it's a dandelion or whether it's a little shoot of a little bush or tree that's coming up through that blacktop and it cracks your blacktop because it's saying, I'm not letting anything, including blacktop, stop me from coming up and being what God, the Creator, made me to be. How about you? What stops you? What holds you back? So often we as Christian women have been told we should just be happy being a wife and a mom. And I hope you are happy being a wife and a mom if you're in a good marriage. But that's not all you are. That's part of what you do. Who was she? I'd like you right now to write, whether you want to write it in the feed or just write it for yourself. What are 3 or 4 big circle items that you'd like to be in you? I'd like to be wise. I'd like to be generous. I like to be kind. Those are my 3 right now. So if every day I say to myself, whatever I do today, whatever I do, I don't know, but in that doing, I want to be wise. I want to be generous, and I want to be kind. And then at the end of the day, ask yourself, so how did I do today? Not, did I get all my 55 things done? But was I wise? Was I generous? Was I kind in whatever I did? If I did my Facebook Live, if I washed my dishes, if I played with my dog, how did I steward my day today so that I was wise, generous, and kind? That's what it means to walk in core strength, which we're going to talk about on Tuesday. So if you don't want to walk deformed, physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, and you want to stand up straight and be the woman that God's called you to be, you need to have core strength, just like you do physically. As women, we're getting older, and if you don't work out and you don't strengthen your arms, she says, she girds herself with strength and invigorates her arms. I love that. She's not letting herself get all flabby. She wants to stand up straight. She's developing her core so she doesn't turn into an old lady that curls over on herself. And we can do that on the inside too, because we haven't done our work. We're so busy fixing everybody else. We're so busy doing without any reflection of, is this what I'm called to do? Is this what God wants me to do? You can be busy. You can be busy, and still live a meaningless life. That is not what God wants for you. So, what are your 3 things? I want to be truthful, wise, diligent, kind, generous. Okay, Berlin. Strong, forgiving, wise in God. Yeah. Fearless, calm, and wise. I just want to know what God wants me to do with my life. God, let me just do one quick more teaching. God tells you 95%. So don't worry about the 5%, because once you do the 95%, the 5% will become very clear. Right? But if you don't do the 95% of what he tells you to do with your life, then you won't know the 5% because you're not equipped. Right? So he doesn't give his power to do some other things to babies. Right? So right now, 95% of what God tells you to do is very clearly said in the Bible. I want you to grow. I want you to mature. I want you to put off your old self and put on your new self. I want you to be wise. I want you to pray without ceasing. I want you to love one another. I want you to love your enemy. I want you to forgive. I want you to learn to speak the truth in love. I want you to learn to discern evil from good, because sometimes evil looks good, it says in Hebrews 3:13. I want you to listen to wise others. I want you to learn the Word of God. I want you to apply yourself to work doing the Word of God, not just learning the Word of God. If you do all those things that God already tells you, it is my will in 1 Thessalonians 4 for you to mature and live a holy life. If you do that, then the opportunities will show themselves very clear about what you're to do with all that character, right? With all that maturity. But if you're immature and you're still a baby spiritually and you don't apply the Word, you might know the Word, but you don't apply the Word, you don't do the Word, God says you're fooling yourself and you're not useful to Him. So don't worry so much about the end game. Worry about living the moment now in the person God's called you to be. And as you do that, one of our biggest tasks in life too is for us to be fully mature, just like a baby. If a baby doesn't grow and doesn't mature, then it's not going to know what it's supposed to do, right? Because it can't. You've got to learn your math tables, and you've got to learn how to walk, and you've got to learn to go to the bathroom and the toilet, and you've got to learn how to get along with other people, and you've got a lot of maturing to do before you're able to go out on your own and have your own job and do those things. But if you don't do that work, you're going to stumble in all the other stuff. So one thing is you're to grow and mature to the best of your abilities. And the second thing that you're to do is that everything in your life you're to do to make God famous. It's not about you. So all of your gifts and all of your talents, whether you're talking to somebody at the laundromat, or you're talking to somebody on Facebook Live, or you're just writing a thank you note to somebody, everything that you do is for God's glory, to make Him famous. And so people can see Jesus in you. And if you get that done and you mature, you can put your head down on the pillow and say, I had a life well lived. But if you live small and you live afraid and you never grow and you never mature because you're so afraid your husband won't like you or your mother won't like the new you because that's not what they want you to be, well, you've missed out. It doesn't matter if you've written 7 books. It really doesn't. If you've never become what God called you to become. All right, so I want to answer some questions here. Hold on. Got to unsleep my computer. It tends to fall asleep if I don't. All right. I feel like I have to choose between someone else raising my kids or having money. I love working but feel guilt. Do you think this woman felt guilt? How do you work through that? So, I don't think it's either or. I don't think it's either or. I think you can raise your kids and work. Now, you can't work 80 hours a week and raise your kids, but I think you can work and raise kids. So how you shuffle that. So for me, how I did it was, and not everybody can do it this way, but I wanted to work too. I love working, and I like my kids too. didn't like them every day, but I didn't like them. But I didn't multitask well. I still don't multitask well. So for me, if I'm in work mode, I wasn't really good at switching into mom mode and going back to work mode and switching into mom mode. And so for me, I worked 2 full days a week. So I worked on Tuesday and Thursday, or Monday and Thursday, something like that. I can't remember what it was. And I would get up in the morning, kiss my kids, bye, go off to school. And when they were littler, I didn't do that as much. But when they were in school, they went off to school, and I went to work. And then my husband came home from work, and he took care of them. He fed them dinner. He put them to bed, and I didn't get home until they were in bed, right? And I would be counseling in my counseling practice. So I would work 2 full days and see them in the morning, and then I'd see them the next day, and I'd be mom. And even when they were little, I did that 1 day a week with a babysitter. I would see them in the morning, give them hugs, all that, and then I would be off and I would do work and do what I needed to do. And then also there were other times during that season when they were littler is that I would work in the evenings, so that my husband would come home and take over and I'd go to work. And so I think you can do both, but where the guilt is coming from is something that's more of a mindset. Okay, so there's beliefs that you have, like my belief that this door was locked when it wasn't really locked, caused me to sit still and not take action. Right? So if we believe that only a stay-at-home mom is a good mom, then we're going to feel guilt if we don't do that. Or if we believe that our kids will hate us if we're not the kind of mom that stays home and bakes cookies and makes, giraffes out of paper mache with them all day long, then we're gonna feel guilty because we have some false beliefs that I have to perform in certain ways in order to be a good mom. I remember a conversation, and my daughter and I just laughed about this recently, because she wanted a different kind of mom. She wanted a Betty Crocker mom who, had an apron on and would like bake cookies every day after school and all that. And so she said, Mommy, I want you to be this kind of mom. I don't want you to work. I want you to stay home. I want you to do this. And I said, that's not the kind of mom I am. And this is really important because, and we talked about it recently, and she laughed and she goes, that's not the kind of mom I am either. We kind of try to fit into this mold of what we think everybody wants us to be or what we think it's supposed to look like. And when you try to fit a square peg into a round hole, what happens? You have a lot of friction and it never fits. And yet that's why I brought this up, because we have this Christian idea of, and I remember when I tried to do this, like, I dreaded the idea of homeschooling my kids. And that was very popular when my kids were little, and I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't stay home all day with kids. That would be like pulling my nails out. Couldn't do it. And so you have to discern what God's equipped you to do, what God's gifted you to do. It doesn't mean you can abdicate your responsibility. Just because you don't like cleaning doesn't mean you don't have to clean your house. But it may be that you don't want to be a cleaning lady for life, right? But if cleaning is your thing, you might be an organizer. You might love to do that for other people, right? So discern. I can't stand the sight of blood. There's no way I could be a doctor or a nurse. I can't even look at it. I can listen to bloody stories and horrible stuff that people do and have had to happen to them. I can hear all that. Some of you can't do that. So you know what your capacities are. Let yourself be the rose, be the sunflower, be the apple tree, whatever God's called you to be, instead of feeling like, ooh, I'm guilty because I'm not what you want me to be. I'm not that kind of person. My strengths are here. We all have weaknesses. I'm sure she had them too, right? And so be who you're supposed to be. And that isn't perfect. There is no perfect, mature person, but mature in who you are supposed to be, not who your husband wants you to be or your kids want you to be. And there's, I'm sure, overlap. So if you put down your 3 words, kind, generous, whatever those words were, I'm sure your kids would say, well, no, Mom, I don't want you to be that. What they might say is, I want you to do certain things for me. And you might say, that's not in my wheelhouse to do. I'm not going to bake cookies because, first of all, I will eat most of them, and that's not good for me. It's not good for you either. We'll bake cookies at Christmas time. We'll bake cake for your birthday. Every week, not going to have it. And guess what? My kid's okay. And I didn't feel guilt. So don't let yourself feel guilt about that. We are taught great things until we get married. Then we are supposed to put all of ourselves aside and completely merge into our husbands. Who says? Who says? Did she do this? I think that's one wrong teaching of some of the complementarian churches teaching these days. Not all of them, but some of them. Taught to become an extension of him. How do I start teaching my girls to think differently but still yearn for a healthy marriage? The yearning for a healthy marriage is hardwired into us. We all yearn for relationship and connection. God has wired us for that. If you've watched any psychological studies, the wire mesh mommy, did you ever see that study with the monkeys? So they had a fake monkey mom with fake breast with a bottle there, but she wasn't furry. She was just a wire mesh mommy. And the baby monkeys would go and drink from her, but she wasn't cuddly. They didn't like her. So as soon as they finished drinking, they'd hop over and they'd go to the furry, stuffed monkey, because that monkey felt more like a mommy. We're hardwired for connection. Can't get around that. So the yearning for a healthy relationship, the yearning to be connected to someone, and intimacy in marriage is just right in there, so she can do that. But this is where we do our girls a disservice. There is no way that we teach our boys that that's all there is to their life. It's to just get married. You just get married and have a family. Get married. We don't teach our boys that. We also say, and what do you want to do with your life? And what's important to you? And what do you think God's calling you to? And here's some of the gifts I see that you have. We do that with our boys because we know it's not just marriage and family. That's all there is to them. But for our girls, we don't. Why not? Why not? For you to be a healthy adult, girlfriend, part of your maturity, a healthy adult is capable of stewarding and taking care of themselves, right? So they don't need their parents anymore. If you're an adult, you don't need your parents anymore. And that includes financially, because now you are self-capable of earning a living. Now, I'm not against putting that on hold for a while. If you choose to, because you want to homeschool your kids, or you can because you have the opportunity to stay at home. But if something, heaven forbid, happens to your husband or your marriage, if you're a healthy adult, you're not so afraid of that because you are capable of supporting yourself and your children. You haven't skipped that step of maturity. Why are we teaching our girls it's okay to skip that? You don't have to get a career. You don't have to think about what you want to be when you grow up, because you just can be a wife and mom and that'll be the rest of your life. Not for many, not for some of you. Then what? Then you're forced into a situation where you're stuck in a marriage that's abusive because you don't know how to work and you don't have any experience and you're afraid and you don't have confidence. Teach your daughters that part of adulting is not just getting married. Of course, part of adulting is you get to have sex and get married and all that. Part of adulting is that you have to be financially capable of taking care of yourself. So that if something happens to your husband, you are financially capable of taking care of your children, and you don't have to move back in with me, right? That's an adult. You move out and you take care of you financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I don't have to baby bird feed you anymore, right? That's what an adult does. But we don't teach our daughters that. Somehow we move them in from growing up to then being taken care of, at least financially, by their husband. And again, I have no problem with that if there's a mutual and reciprocal agreement about that, and there's freedom for both to access the finances and all of that for a season. But if you're a nurse or you're a teacher or you have any other profession, like I was a licensed professional, do not let your license expire just because you're not currently working. Do not let all of your skills go down the toilet thinking, oh, I love being at home. I will be home the rest of my life. You don't know that. You don't know that. Prepare for the future and the unexpected, because you don't know what things are going to turn out to be like. All right. I have to let go of resentment toward my husband who doesn't carry his load. I was and I am the strong woman, teaching, taking university classes, raising 3 kids by myself, managing my home and the rental home. Good for you. I am struggling in this area, trying to encourage myself with thankfulness. Yeah, you do have to let go of the resentment, because the poison is in you. It's not hurting your husband at all. Sometimes we carry resentment and we think, I resent them for the way they are, and they don't care. They don't care. That's why you had if they cared, they might have changed it. But they didn't. So for you to carry that, it's like for you, think about it. Just put it on. Put resentment as a 25-pound backpack on your back full of rocks. And maybe symbolically, you should do that. Go get your backpack, stuff it full of a couple of rocks till it gets to be about 20 pounds and carry it around for the day. And ask yourself, do I want to carry this around forever? No. Take it off, let it go. Forgive. Forgiveness doesn't mean what he did was okay, or you wouldn't have to forgive it, right? Forgiveness doesn't mean that you take care of him or mitigate the consequences or let him back in your house or in your life or in your marriage, any of that. Forgiveness is taking the backpack off of resentment and bringing it to Jesus and saying, it's yours to take care of with him. But for me, I don't want to carry that backpack anymore. And you can do this, girlfriend. You can. I was to be strong and proud of myself, but I am scared of criticism and anger from the other half. How do I get past this? First of all, a healthy person applauds your growth. So let's put it in parenting. Okay? What would you do if your husband, your current husband, whoever asked this question, and you had a little boy or a little girl, and they were so proud, they said, look, Mom, I can stand on one foot, right? So they're learning balance. And your husband said, that's stupid. Stop that. Oh, I guess I'm silly for standing on one foot. Look, Mom, I learned how to do my cursive. Oh, shut up. You're just being a show-off. What would you do if your husband was squashing your child's growth? Your child's pride, good pride in their growth, in their maturity. Look, I remember when my children finally learned to go in the bathroom, in the toilet, the number 2, and they said, Mom, here it is. And, you want to, yay, not shame them. And so if your husband is shaming you for your growth in confidence and competence and diligence and wisdom and in skill building, there's something wrong with him. That's where your mindset has to shift, because he may not change that because his own insecurity, your growth threatens him, right? That would be my guess. Your growth threatens him because maybe he's not growing and he doesn't want to grow. So if you grow, you might grow apart, because in marriage, when you join together, it doesn't mean you both stay 18 forever or 22 forever. I hope not. But that you grow together, and you might not always grow at the same pace or even the same way, but you're both still maturing. And if he doesn't want to, he wants to stay an 18-year-old or 14-year-old boy, and you're maturing, that's going to threaten him unless you become the mama to take care of him, which is pretty unappealing for both of you, right? And so he will try to shame you, just like a dad or a mom whose child is blossoming, and you feel threatened by that. If that's hitting your narcissism or your ego in some way, you will try to squash that, just like I gave you some examples. So here's where you have to have the mindset, this is his problem. I'm not going to feel intimidated by that. This is his problem. And I think you could even talk to it. Like you could say to him, I don't know why you feel like you have to put me down all the time I, finish a college class or every time I get a promotion. What's that about? So now you're saying it out loud. That may not do anything for him. It may give him an opportunity to say, I wonder what that is about. Why do I do that? My dad always did that. And that might provide some self-awareness and some self-growth. Or it might do nothing other than get him to shut up a little bit because you call him on it, right? Like, hey, this is your problem. I'm not sure why you have to do this, but every time I seem to do well, you put me down. What's that about? And now you're calling him out on it. In other words, I'm not going to take it in anymore. I'm going to lay it out and show you what it is. What you do with it is your problem, but I'm not letting you stop me anymore. Gary Thomas wrote a great book called When to Walk Away. And if you scroll into my blogs, maybe about a month back, he wrote a guest post. And he told a story about a woman whose husband constantly squashed her growth. And he said, our job is to serve God. And we can't let anyone get in our way, including a marriage, where someone is threatened by our giftings or our callings, and so if you're supposed to be an oak tree and he's stepping on your little seedling coming up, you got to go around it and keep coming up. You can't let that He may try to squash you, but what I don't want you to do is let that guilt or that shame or that oppression mess with your mindset of you still need to grow. Yeah, scared of criticism and anger, right? So that's what the work you need to do, is not to be scared of it. It's going to happen, but don't be scared of it, right? Just accept that he can't handle your growth and keep growing, and hopefully he will learn to. Is it too late to begin life at 50 plus, discovering who I am as a person? For goodness sakes, Moses was in the wilderness for how long? Because of some stupid tax he had to pay because he wasn't paying attention to what God told him to do, right? And he didn't start really becoming Moses that we know, I think, until he was much older, right? You got still a lot of life yet, girl. And I have women in my coaching groups and stuff who are in their 50s who are doing going back to college, doing some amazing things. And no, please, you might have another 40 years, maybe another 45 years. You don't know how long you're going to live, so live. I have come that you might have life and have it to the fullest. Gary Haugen, who's the director of the, I can't think of the agency, but it's the one that, International Justice Mission, IJM, the one that does a lot of the legal work for sex trafficking and stuff. He wrote a book, I can't think of the name of it, but in there he tells a story about his dad taking him to hiking. And he was a little scared to go hiking. And so he convinced his father and his older brother to let him stay in the visitor center for the day. So he said, I was in the visitor center for like 6 hours, and they were on this adventure, and they got all scraped up, and it rained. And he said, when they came back down, he said, they had amazing stories of life, and I was bored to death. And I learned I'm not living safe anymore, And so sometimes we just want to live in our little cul-de-sac, and we don't want to live exciting life. You could go on missions trips. You could become a teacher. You could do tutoring. You could do all kinds of stuff. I don't know what your gifts are, but look at your gifts, look at your interests, and begin to ask God, use me. Let me live full out for however long I have. All right. Will the workshop be appropriate for a teen girl, 16 years old? Parts of it will. There's one lie that we're going to talk about, divorce, and so obviously that won't be applicable to her. She's not in that situation. Is God hate all divorce? But I think really understanding some of the lies, like what does dying to self mean? That's one we're going to cover in the workshop, and we're going to be talking about core strength. What does it mean to build core strength? So it certainly might bore her a little as a 16-year-old, because 16-year-olds don't tend to like that kind of thing. But if she's interested, I wouldn't not have her come. Okay. One of my friends is married to a lawyer and lives really comfortably. We were talking on the phone, and she said, I always knew that I was not going to need to work. And that did not sit well with me. I've always had to work and help my family, me too. In fact, I've worked since I was like 8 years old. And because I actually like to work, I'm having a hard time not being resentful. How do I take this weight off? Well, first of all, I'm not sure what the weight is. Like, are you jealous that she doesn't have to work and you have to work? Because you're saying, I like to work. Even if, I don't have to work anymore. I could retire. I like to work. I don't want to live the rest of my life just playing. I want to minister. I want to still do kingdom work, right? So even if I didn't have to work, and I don't have to work financially, it's not why I work financially. I work because I love my work and I love my ministry, and I want to continue to be wise and generous and kind and give out what God's showing me. So I think if you can sort of see her as the loser, I don't have to work. Well, no, you don't. But why wouldn't you want to contribute? And maybe she does. Maybe she does a lot of volunteer work, and that gives her the freedom to do that and giving. But if she's just spending her life getting manicures and going to the spa with her friends and playing pickleball, I don't have any problem with spas or manicures, pedicures, or pickleball, but that's not a life. Those are some activities. So if that's what her life consists of, she's the poorer for it. So certainly don't be resentful of her or jealous, because she's living a skim milk life. She's living for pleasure and not for purpose. And so don't confuse the two. She might have the ability to live just for pleasure. But we look at people who live just for pleasure, and they're addicts, and they're unhappy, and they often commit suicide because there's no meaning to their life. So when we work, God has created us to work. And it's not just to make a living. It's to create a purpose to our life. And pleasure is not the purpose. Pleasure is the recreation from the work, which is fine, but that's not a life. What is the role of autonomy in marriage? How do I live my best life when my life choices affect my husband? Example, I always wanted a dog, so my best self was decisive and bought a puppy. Husband is not a fan of the puppy and never wanted a dog inside. Was I wrong to get the dog anyway because it's my house too, and my best life has a dog in it? Well, I think those kind of things that impact, just like a child, if you were expecting him to take care of the dog or love the dog, or if he's allergic to the dog, all those kind of things. If you're together, there is whether it's a husband or even a roommate, there's a bit of mutuality and respectfulness about how does this impact you, and are you willing to have this impact you, right? How does this impact you, and are you willing to have this impact you? How's that going to affect you? I'm not responsible for your feelings, but I'm responsible to care about your feelings, especially if I've committed to do that in marriage. But even a roommate, I'm gonna get a dog. How do you feel about that? I don't want a dog. I don't want to smell a dog. I don't want to see a dog poop. I don't want to have to clean up his throw up if you're not home. I don't want a dog. How do you deal with that? Right? So I think those would be things that you do need to talk about in a marriage. But here's where mutuality and reciprocity come in a healthy relationship. There's a give and take in that. So sometimes when my husband and I are in a disagreement about that, I'll say, well, how important is that to you? Right? So I might say, well, for me, getting a dog is a 10. That's how important it is to me. How important is it to you not to have a dog? He said, maybe 5, 6. So my importance is higher than his lack of want, right? Now, if his was a 1, we would be so far apart, we might have to think of other things. Is there a different kind of pet we can get, or all those kind of things, so that you are caring about the relationship more than caring about getting your own way, right? And I think that's part of the discipline of being with people, is that you don't always get your own way all the time, even if what you want is perfectly legitimate, right? Perfectly legitimate to have a dog. But when you're married to somebody who doesn't want one, or a child, it's not wise just to not care how they feel if it impacts them, if the decision impacts them. Now, if I say I'm going to get braces, or I'm going to go to counseling, it doesn't really impact them per se, financially maybe a little bit, but it's not like some creatures in the house that they have to take care of. So I think there's times when they might not want you to, and it doesn't really impact them the same way, a little financially, but not in terms of having another person to take care of or something around them that they may be allergic to. But I do think that there is this autonomy, and I think here's where Christian women have learned to just melt into their husband's wants. You want that? All right, then I won't get it. That's important to you? All right, well then I won't do it. It's important for you to keep moving and getting your promotion? Well then I'll just have to keep adjusting, right? I think there's a time where you have to say, hey, it's a 10 for me, and you might have to use words like strong, direct words. Husbands, men, and we've talked about this before, don't communicate very indirectly. They unless they're covert abusers. But if you need something, communicate more directly with them. Like, this is how important it is to me. It's a 10. It's not negotiable, right? So that they know you really mean it, but then you have to mean it. And so does that not matter to you that it's that important to me? But I think there are some people, both men and women, who believe marriage is an enmeshment relationship where you just kind of melt into one person. And sometimes women believe that, and they feel very threatened if their husband wants to do other things, and he wants to have friends, and he wants to go hunting or playing golf. And there's men who believe that, hey, if you want to have girlfriends and you want to go out to a women's retreat, or you want to work, what's wrong with our marriage? Aren't I enough for you? Aren't I enough for you? And no. No, marriage was never meant to be our all and everything, nor was one person meant to be enough for us. That's our God then, and that's not him. So no, you're not enough for me, right? And I don't want to put that burden on you, right? So it's not an insult, insult that you're not enough for me. The reality is that I want you in my life, but I want other things in my life too. I want marriage in my life, but that's not all my life. I want other things in my life too. I love you, but I have other things that I love too. I love my dog. I love my mother. I love my girlfriends. I want to see them as well. And when you have a person who's very insecure, and the only way they feel loved is if you forsake everybody else, and they might use that scripture, forsaking all others, but that's the relationship with God. That's not the relationship with a husband. Yes, we're to leave and cleave, but it doesn't mean, and we never see any examples where they aren't connected with other people in a larger community, even when they're married. All right. What's the best approach to breaking codependence after a divorce? Do your own work. Do your own work. All right. So a codependent will look for another person to fix or to cling to instead of doing her own work. So I would say give yourself a fast. Like, I'm not dating. I'm not going out. I'm not doing any of that for a while. I'm going to do my own work. I'm going to go to, codependent no more. If you want a free, support group out there, I'm going to get some counseling. I'm going to go get some coaching. I'm going to join a support group for codependence. I'm going to read on it. I'm going to do my own work. That's what you have to do. You have to do your own work. There's no shortcut to maturity and healing, and you have to do that for yourself if that's where you want to go. My husband is not the only one resisting my growth. My adult children are not happy that I am changing. They want me to stay there and continue serving them. And we've talked about this over and over again. So if you are a woman who has adult children and you had this mindset that I have to be my everything for my kids and I have to be the mom, that's all they see you as, is a role. You are a role, like my cell phone. You're an object. You're an object to serve them. And when you start saying, wait a minute, I'm a person. I kind of like to go back to college. I kind of like to, hang out with my girlfriends. No, I don't want to babysit your kids all the time. I had an idea that I might like to write a book and I want some time to do it myself. They don't like that because you have never been a person. You've always just been a role, a mom, a grandma, a wife. So why are you changing it now, Mom? We like you that way because we can pick up and use you whenever we need to use you, and then when we don't need you, you can go do what you want, right? And so please, 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 if you're a younger woman and you have younger children, don't do that. And I'm sorry that our teaching has been so poor on this. Don't do that. Don't let your kids think that your whole life revolves around serving them. It's a very narcissistic point of view that you're actually enabling them to have in their mind. And that's not good for them, and it's certainly not good for you, right? One of the things that's so critical to a 2 to 3 year old child is to realize that the whole world doesn't revolve around meeting their needs. You see, when you have a baby, that's what they think, that everyone revolves around meeting their needs. I cry, you come. And that's good. We're supposed to, because we want to create a secure base. But there comes a place in that infant's maturity where they come up against reality. There's a new baby in the house, usually around 2 or 3, right? And now I'm not the center of the world anymore. Boo-hoo. I've got to share. I've got to mature, right? And if you don't do that, if you're knocking yourself out to keep your kids happy that they're the center of your world, well, guess what? Now you're in this woman's boat, and they're adults, and you're saying, I'm tired of this. And they're not tired of it because they still like you serving them whenever they need it. So it is an adjustment for everyone. And I think it's best if you could humbly confess that you thought this was a good idea when they were growing up, that you would be their everything. But as you've matured, you don't see this quite the same way. And you have some goals of your own for this life. And it doesn't include just being a mom and a grandma. And you're sorry if they don't like that, but you would hope that at some point they would come to appreciate that you're a person too. And you have a calling on your life that God wants you to do. And it's not just being a mom and a grandma and a wife. All right? Let's see. 2 more questions and then we're going to go. What happens if your husband is financially prosperous, has given me a place to start my own language school, but hardly helps with the upbringing of the children, hardly shows interest in your plans, nor asks about your health problems? He just says he has given me the space for the academy, but he does not know the type of business that has to do with education. He sees me struggling with raising my kids and the problems involved. And when I get upset, he says, if you want, you can go out and find a way to make the money that I can make while I stay home. But will you be able to come up with this amount of money? All right. So I think here's where you have to kind of think through some things in a adult kind of way. Your husband sees himself working hard to contribute to the support financially of the family's needs as well as your new business startup, right? And maybe he sees himself as, maybe, and I don't know the hours he works, but maybe he works 60 hours a week to do that, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week to do that. In his mind, his expectations are you have the freedom to organize your day to include your parenting, include your business, and maybe put in 60 hours a week too to do those things. When you want him to work 60 hours a week doing this part and then come home and put in another 15 or 20 hours a week parenting, then he may say, hey, I don't think that's fair. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. So I don't know what the hours are. But how we worked it out in our home was that, hey, we're both parents. So it's not like you get a pass from parenting just because you work and I'm home, all right? So when you're home, you're a parent and I'm a parent. We're both parents. When you're not home, I'm the parent, right? Or the babysitter's the parent, because somebody's got to be the parent. So when you're not home and you're working, but on weekends, those kind of things, you're the parent too. So then we had to negotiate on weekends, how are we going to parent? Who's going to be the parent if I wanted to go get my hair done, or I wanted to go work, or I wanted to go do something else, or he wanted to do something else? It wasn't always assumed I was going to be the on-call 24/7 parent. And I think those are things that you have to talk about early in parenting and early in pregnancy. Hey, how are we doing parenting here? I'm not the on-call parent and I have to ask you to babysit our children. These are your children too, right? It always amazes me when a woman will say, oh, I want to come to the retreat this weekend, but my husband doesn't want to babysit the kids. I'm like, he's a parent. What do you mean he doesn't want to babysit the kids? He's not the babysitter, he's the dad, right? So, but you've allowed that. You've allowed that mindset that he gets to decide, I don't want to be a parent on Saturday because I want to golf all day. He is a parent. He is a parent. So, but I hear also in your tone kind of a victim mindset, like I don't have choices. If your husband's prosperous, then maybe you can hire someone to watch the kids while you do some of your business work so you're not so worn out, right? Maybe you need to go for some counseling or coaching on parenting things so that you can get some more wisdom if your husband doesn't want to contribute in thinking through some problems with your kids. If you have the money to get extra help, get the extra help then. Get cleaning help. So no one else can parent your kids. I always said it this way. No one else can parent my kids. So I've got to be the parent. You can hire a nanny and all that, but that's not parenting. Right? No one else can parent your kids but you. But somebody else can clean your house. Somebody else can do your wash. Somebody else can cook your meals, or you can buy your meals. I mean, you don't have to do it all. And so if running this business and starting this business, and, I don't know how much you know about your husband's business, and I wouldn't get all bent out of shape if he's not all that engaged in yours either. This is your business. This is your baby. You take it on. You own it. Do the work for it. And if he's not all that interested, then, I consult with lots of people on my business. I don't know anything about business. I was a social worker. I wasn't a business person, but now I have a business. I have employees. I have people I have to pay. I have to figure this out. I don't know how to do that. I have to ask people and hire people to help me to do that. And you may have to do that too. That's part of your maturity as a business owner, right? And it may be that he's got his plate full and doesn't want to be a partner in your business, just like you're not a partner in his work. So those are the autonomy kind of things that you have to start talking through and being okay with him saying, no, I don't want to be a part of your business. I'll support you. I'll give you, money to start it, but I don't want to help you in it. So hire someone to help you in it, or join a mastermind, or get involved in, people who are doing what you're doing and networking with them so that you're getting fresh ideas and business ideas and not feeling so helpless about all this. All right, one more. What do you do when you want to move to another state to help children due to Corona, but husband tells you yes, takes you to look at houses, and then changes his mind and gives you false hope? I guess you need to say, why'd you change your mind? I think that's a big decision to make as a couple, that you're going to move your whole life to help your children with Corona. I mean, Corona's temporary. It's not a permanent state of affairs unless you truly want to move to be near your kids for lots of reasons, not just Corona. So maybe a compromise is to say, well, I do really want to help them right now, so how about I rent an apartment? Then I'll go and stay and get a temporary rental, a rental of a house, rental of apartment, 6-month rental, 3-month rental, whatever your finances can afford, because he's not ready to make that decision right now. And I think, we would want the right to have a press pause, change my mind kind of option in certain decisions that are life-changing decisions, like a move. And so to ask your husband, he went with you, you looked at houses, and now he's changed his mind for whatever reason, I don't know. But I think that if I were open to moving and I went someplace and I got there and I saw, I don't think I really want to do this, I hope I would have the right to express that too. So I don't think he's being a bad person for saying, I want to put a hold on this right now. I'm not sure I'm ready to do this, or I don't like that area, or I don't want to live so close to the kids, or whatever it might be. But I think if you temporarily want to go to help, then put it in option B. I want to help. They need help. This is what I'd like to do, and see what happens. See if that's a better option for both of you, that he can live with a temporary kind of thing versus a permanent thing for now. All right. So this is part of having a healthy relationship with someone, is that there's communication, and there's respect, and there's curiosity versus condemnation, judgment, accusing, attacking. So in this situation, I think he has a right as an adult to change his mind and reevaluate his decision without you being resentful about that. But then now what? How do we renegotiate this problem with our kids and helping our kids? Do we do this temporarily for now and then reevaluate in a year? Or what do we do, and how do we talk about this in a respectful, adult, mature way? And that's part of where we need to do our own work. We can't make them do their work, but do our own work so that we're not underreacting or overreacting to certain things. And we're able to communicate clearly what we're unhappy with and what we'd like to see different, and what we're willing to bring to the table to see if that can happen. All right? So I hope you sign up for the webinar. It's lesliebernick.com/join webinar. And it is going to be next Tuesday at noon Eastern time. We'll be doing a live webinar, and then I will be answering your questions. And in that frame, it'll be a little bit more private versus Facebook, so we can ask, some more personal questions if you need to about your family. And then also, we'll be doing it at 7:30 the same night. So next Tuesday, the webinar, you cannot attend if you do not register. If you register and you find you cannot attend, it's okay. You'll get a replay. It'll be like a 24, 48-hour replay that you can watch it if you want to. It won't be forever, but you can watch it. You'll get an email about that. So if you know you can't come but you want to see the webinar, then sign up anyway, because you only can watch it on a replay if you've signed up for it, okay? Thank you so much for this time this week. It's been a lot of fun. We'll be doing some more of these in the future. Probably back at my cabin, because I'm going back to Pine Top next week, so it'll be dark and in my little 1,400 square foot cabin that's very rustic and dark. I sort of like the bright. I don't like being in the dark. It's a cabin. I don't want to paint the walls because it's, they're wood, and that's cabin-y look, but I don't like being in the dark so much. But I don't like the 115 degree temperature either here, though. So it's pretty darn hot, and my feet have been swollen, and I've been hot and out of breath, and played pickleball last night, and I have blisters on my feet because my feet got so swollen they were rubbing on my shoes. So I'll be kind of happy to go back to the cooler weather. So I will see you next week from Pine Top. We will be doing the webinar from there. Take care, and God bless. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.